Ubisoft has just announced the next setting for their Assassin's Creed franchise, the Viking era, which promises to take you to a world of plunder, longboats, and more beards than a Seattle hipster convention. The historic adventure series of Assassin's Creed has broadened its scope recently by letting players venture into the seas, and as the lead developer on Valhalla is the same one who headed Black Flag and introduced it to the franchise, it's no surprise to see this beloved nautical feature returning, as the word Viking roughly means pirate, and implied a life of high seas adventure with exploration, trade, raids, and tales to be sung of their accomplishments. The game will let you slip into the boots of Eivor, a Norse warrior who must leave his home in Norway to found a new settlement in the lush hills of merry old Angleland. Except this won't be a peaceful immigration, as the game puts you in one of the most turbulent periods in English history, and the developers have put the exact starting date as 873 AD, a period when the great Viking army moved unchecked throughout England, toppling the 5 existing Saxon kingdoms until only one remained, the last kingdom, Wessex, ruled by the stalwart but sickly Alfred the Great, though he's only Alfred the Okay at this point. If this all sounds terribly familiar, it's because in the last 5 years we've seen this story covered by both The Last Kingdom and History Channel's Vikings. But it's one thing to watch history and another to play it, especially when Ubisoft has a reputation for creating lush historical living worlds that you can carouse in. And as far as the historiosity goes, on first glance it's pretty standard Viking fare, with the art design clearly inspired by some recent television interpretations. Lots of wood and thatch houses, chain mail and leather armor, and a smattering of glam rock furs to keep out the cold, all of which falls vaguely between the 7th and 11th centuries, the age of the Vikings. TV adaptations receive endless flack for this art style, but the simple fact is that there are very few written records of the period, and even fewer visual representations that exist today. The archaeology is even scarce, as this is an era of wood, cloth, and iron, none of which preserve terribly well. So creating a world where there's not a horned helmet in sight, no metal stud decorations, and black leather kept to a tasteful minimum already puts it at the head of the class. Sure, bits of the game do seem derivative, and yes, they are borrowing most of their Norse religion from a TV show in the 13th Warrior, but when all you have to work with are Beowulf and a pantheon of passed down stories, you have to depict it somehow. And since Vikings are infamous for activities like the Blood Eagle, Ubisoft is fighting an uphill battle to dispel the perception of the Norse as soulless, bloodthirsty marauders, though the trailer does get a bit heavy-handed with that message. But the developers have already gone on record to say that the trailer did oversimplify the story of the Vikings, that Alfred the Great is not just a chin-stroking baddie, and all Vikings will not be so kind to women and children. The game itself will actually focus on sailing, raiding, and warfare of course, but also the less well-known role of the Viking conquerors as settlers. And though you will be able to choose between a female and male version of Eivor at the game's start, everything in the game plays identically except for a few pronouns. Eivor may have been raised as a fearless warrior, but he'll be taking on the role of a clan leader after the death of the existing patriarch, and as the head of these recently resettled raiders, you'll be responsible for building your settlement into a permanent home. As you play, you'll work to customize your settlement by building new structures, with each construction opening new features and quests, adding buildings like a barracks, a blacksmith, and a tattoo parlor, with many more promised. Previous Creed games have included settlement building, like Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag to some degree, but in Valhalla, it's been promised as a central feature. Quests will often begin and end there, and with the story revolving around your fledgling home, and the choices you make affect its fate, as well as your standing with other characters, and there's even teases that your choices will delve into character relationships, like politics even. But though your goals may be peaceful, you'll always be working towards them by spilling just gallons of blood. And to upgrade your village requires an endless supply of resources, and to gather these resources, you'll need to lead epic raids, where you'll lead a crew of raiders in lightning-fast surprise assaults on Saxon armies and fortresses, a series of fortified towns called burhs, created by Alfred the Great during the period to help protect against raids, which will provide fun nuts to crack with extra treasure inside, all to claim their riches and lands to enhance your own. Which means we'll also be seeing the return of conquest battles from Odyssey, though now they come in raid, siege, and big battle flavors to add add a bit of variety to the game. To do this, you'll be recruiting NPCs to join your warband. You'll take Ivor's longship and sail around to perform raids and various side quests such as hunting, fishing, as well as more traditional Viking pastimes like drinking contests, brawls, flirting, and flighting. A poetic rap battle that, I kid you not, is a real Norse thing. Combat is also getting an update to be more in a Viking fashion, with the fast and ruthless style of Norse combat encouraging a dual-wield mechanic. You can pair axes, swords, and, yes, finally, shields. The developers have promised endless combinations, including a double shield build, which implies that they will be used to bash, push, poke, and prod as they actually were in the period. Rounding out this roster will undoubtedly be the two-handed axe and spears, all staples of early medieval warfare. If you prefer long range, bows are confirmed to be returning, and I would expect to hear about javelins soon. And for longtime fans of the series, you'll be happy to know the much-loved hidden blade is also back as well. The game will supposedly rely less on an RPG-style leveling system and focus instead on skill trees and the abilities you unlock through them, and because of this, you'll have a wider range of enemy types to encounter, as they'll draw from this same list to wield their own special abilities against you. It's also been noted that you'll have animal companions that can be summoned to assist you in battle, and these can come in many forms, with at least a wolf and a bear confirmed, and your previous eagle view will now be replaced by a more thematically appropriate raven. But on the ground level, you'll actually be spending most of your time traversing the world by boat. Naval combat has been cut back for this game, as your longship will work more like a fast getaway horse than a cannon-laden man-of-war. And this fits perfectly with the era, as it allows the creators to tackle the Viking raiders' real strength, which is quickly traversing navigable rivers. This focus on river travel means we'll actually see a different style of map than Origins and Odyssey. It's certainly possible the entire North Sea will be explorable, with Iceland, Ireland, Scotland, and Norway included, but that seems unlikely given this new focus, as many players complained about the sheer size and unwieldiness of the last game's map. Developer interviews all focus on Alfred the Great and his conflict with the Viking marauders, and the only other people group that's been mentioned so far is the native Britons, so it's much more likely that we will get two maps, one of the Norwegian coastline and a second one of just southern Britain, possibly even focused entirely on East England. I've even taken the liberty of highlighting the major waterways and historically significant cities that will likely appear for those interested. And before you say, man, that sounds boring, I should point out that the coastline of England looks dramatically different in this period, full of marshes and swamps that have since been reclaimed, as well as deep forests, rolling hills, and snow-capped mountains. But I'll release more information on that as it becomes available. The story of the game itself can already largely be guessed at with a bit of historic knowledge and tidbits from interviews. The modern-day portions of the game with Layla Hassan are slated to make a return, as this is an Assassin's Creed title. It's already been confirmed the game will start in Norway as a young Ivor learns the Viking ropes from the leader of his clan. A combination of political and environmental factors will then force them on a journey to England, where they can join up with an existing Norse army who has already established themselves there, the eponymous Great Viking Army. The current leader of the clan will die, and Ivor will take control. Undoubtedly, his dying wish will be to see his clan prosper in their new settlement, and maybe he'll throw in a desire to see the end of a cycle of bloodshed just for kicks. Around this time, Ivor will meet up with the Hidden Ones, and will join them in their fight against the Order of the Ancients, standard Assassin's Creed fare. And if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say it's this guy in the trailer. He's got just enough of a weasel face to sell it. More importantly though, Alfred here, the King of Wessex, is not the bad guy. He's just a young king in the second year of his reign who is being terribly misguided. And 874 also happens to be the year that the Great Viking Army splits into two, with Halfdan going north to pillage Northumbria and fight the Scots, while Guthrum went south to fight Wessex and Alfred. I expect you'll be in the latter camp. So from there, it's shank your way through the story, expanding your town, raiding the English, and kicking progressively more butt until the Battle of Ashdown in 878 AD, where you'll finally conquer the hidden baddie and Alfred wins against the Vikings. Oh, I'm sorry, did I forget to say the Vikings lose in this story? But in a surprising historical twist, Alfred doesn't murder all of them. Instead, he calls it a draw and lets them settle in eastern England, promising friendship and homesteads for everyone. Yay, happy ending. Cue the credits and an expansion set in either Ireland, Iceland, or Normandy. And I can't wait to see how it all turns out. Ubisoft and the 14 teams working on this are ticking all the right boxes, and at least during interviews, the developers seem to appreciate the complexity of the period, the dueling necessities of war and peace, and the grayness of the world, and the eternal struggle of freedom versus order. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is set to release in the fall of 2020 on current and next-gen consoles. Stay tuned to this channel for more coverage as it releases, as well as insights into the history of the era. And as always, thanks for watching.